So, sorry for that. So, where will those four guys go? Well, I'll say they'll probably go between pick 26 and pick 70 would be my prediction. The first guy going late first, while the last guy going in the early third round. But I mean, really, it could be someone could slip easily and go middle third, late third. I don't know, fourth, maybe, depending on how the draft shapes up. But overall, it's really tough to predict, especially with guys like Onzurike and Tryon, and guys just like him, those guys who didn't play last season, they opted out. You don't really look at film as much on them because it's been a year. You can't rely on that film as much because they've been training nonstop in the off season. So the teams will be looking for that in individual workouts and or I guess when they went to their pro days, because I'm not sure if they're actually having individual workouts, but when they talk with them clearly, that'll be a talking point on why they decided to opt out, what they've been doing to train in the off season. Now, I'm no mock draft expert, but if I were to pick a spot for each of these guys, I think the first guy off the board might be Joe Tryon, and that might be at pick 27 to the Ravens. Now, Ravens lost Matt Judon in the offseason, the pass rusher. So why not replace it with a guy like Joe Tryon? A guy who's a very athletic pass rusher, runs a 4.56 at the pro day for the Huskies. He was about 6'5", 260 pounds, which is actually very similar to former Baltimore Ravens legend Terrell Suggs, who was a little shorter, 6'3", but exact same weight at 260. Very similar in skill and size with being pass rush specialists who can use their speed as well as just strength to get around smaller offensive tackles, and then bigger offensive tackles, like I said, use their speed. And so that might be a good spot for Tryon the Ravens at pick 27. Next up for the Huskies, I think goes is Levi Onwuzurike. And surprisingly, actually, or shockingly, the very next pick I think he could go, number 28 to the New Orleans Saints. And that's another thing is just that the Saints lost these defensive linemen. They lost Trey Henderson. They lost Sheldon Rankings. They need to replace these pass rush and interior defensive linemen. And who better to do that than with Onwuzurike? Onwuzurike, I'll say, never put up huge statistical numbers at UW. 2019, he had 45 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, and I think it was 2 sacks. But looking at the fine numbers, the detailed numbers, you see how big of an impact he actually made for the Huskies and how important he was for them on the field and how well he graded with PFF. Overall, you look at his tape and you see what type of player he is. He's a player that makes an impact on a defense. Now, in the NFL, he'll probably have to bulk up a bit as he's a bit undersized for interior defensive line, but he has great hands, a great get off, and he'll have the ability to make an impact probably from day one in situational football. So I have each of these Husky pass rushers going first, going late first round, and that's due to the teams picking them. I could see those 5 teams from pick 26 to 32. 5 of those 6 teams need a pass rusher. That's why I put both Onwuzurike and Tryon there, because that's what those teams need. Now, next up for the Huskies going is Elijah Molden. And whichever team picks him is going to be picking him based off his film and his just character ability. It's not going to be about his physical traits. He's at 5'10", 190 pounds. That's not the size and physicality that a defensive coordinator drools over. You put in his tape, though, in college film, that's just flat out great. That's what a defensive coordinator will drool over because he played great. He was an amazing college cornerback, defensive back, all around defender. His film speaks for itself. His accolades speak for themselves. He was All Pac-12 First Team 2020 and 2019. 2020, he was also PFF's Pac-12 Player of the Year. He may have only ran a 4.59 at his pro day, which some people could dock him for that, but you got to look deeper than that. He had an injured hamstring, I believe it was. He didn't run the shuttle because of that. He ran the 40, he just wanted to do it, see what he could do. Didn't put up the best number, but he was injured. So in order to draft him, you want to look at his film. And I could easily see a team falling in love with him from that. And because of that athleticism trait and the size, he probably won't be going first round. So I'm thinking second round for him. And whichever team gets him in that second round is going to get an absolute steal. It's pretty tough to predict where a corner like him will go because there's so many corners that are probably going to go in the NFL draft. They always go a bunch. That's a popular position always. But I think a team that actually is an ideal fit for Molden would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Molden is very similar in his skill set to Tyrann Mathieu. You put both those guys out on the field at the same time, and it could cause the QB some problems with their ability to roam around, jump these underneath routes, and then also come up and play physical football, tackling the running back. Excuse me. But the issue with the Chiefs is they don't pick until pick 58. So I really wouldn't be shocked if Molden's already gone by then or long gone. A team that I think might have a good opportunity to get him is at number 44, the Cowboys. Who the Cowboys, their secondary hasn't really looked great in recent years or in a while. So you could plug Molden in and really help that out. I know the Cowboys did sign a couple of defensive backs, including Keanu Neal, in the offseason, but just adding to that secondary could be helpful for the Cowboys. The last Husky out of this bunch is Keith Taylor, another cornerback who is kind of opposite of Molden. Taylor is 6'3", 195 pounds. So unlike Molden, he has ideal size for the position. However, also unlike Molden, he doesn't have the best tape. Molden had amazing film coming out of college. Keith Taylor doesn't. He never really broke through for the Huskies. He had 0 interceptions. He'd get beat in coverage at times. But Taylor did really what helped him rise up to this position that he's on the draft boards now is his great Senior Bowl performance and Pro Day performance helped him shine. And the question then is going to be how much do teams value the most recent numbers that he's seen from him with the Pro Day and Senior Bowl performance versus his whole college career? How much do they weigh each one of those individual things with where he goes? Overall, I think his size and just his performance that he's shown in recent history at the Pro Day and his Senior Bowl is going to put him in the late second, early third round talk. And really an ideal spot for him, I think, is Green Bay, pick 62. The Packers have a guy that the Huskies know all too well in Kevin King already. He's on a 1-year, $6 million deal. And the other corner opposite of King is, of course, Jair Alexander, an absolute shutdown corner. Great guy. But he is then coming up on his contract extension time. They picked up his 5th-year option. I believe it's going to be like next offseason when they sign Jair Alexander to a huge contract extension. The Packers are going to be wanting to save money somewhere. So getting a corner like Keith Taylor on a rookie contract, let him learn behind guys like Jair Alexander, a guy like Kevin King, who's very similar in physical traits, being 6'3" as well. And maybe Keith Taylor can develop into something and turn into a great corner. But yeah, I think pick 62 for the Packers could be good for him.